Good morning, welcome back to Mae Sot, Thailand. First point, yes, my hair is gone. I'll tell that story in a minute once I'm on the road. Point two, I'm heading out on the scooter today to go to another temple that's near Mae Sot. I've been to a lot of temples lately, but I kind of think of it as a destination for my scooter journey. So it's not just the temple, it's the drive through Mae Sot, it's the drive through the countryside and things that I find along the way. And this temple connects with the temple I went to recently because a woman at a coffee shop told me about two temples I should visit. The first one was the gravel quarry temple, and the second one had kind of a hanging rock, a rock that's kind of poised on a knife edge. And I always find those kind of fascinating. And I couldn't find it, but someone left a comment in the video. I'll leave the comment right here on the screen, telling me that this is probably the temple that she was talking about, and I'm pretty sure it is. So that's where I'm going to go today. Point three is that today is going to be experiment number 2 in shooting video with 2 GoPros. And I'm going to talk about that for a minute here. And if all this technical stuff is of no interest to you, that's fine. Just skip ahead in the video to where I start the trip. But for anyone that's interested in the technology and kind of behind the scenes, I'm going to talk about this 2 GoPro system that I have going on and a few of the things that I learned from my first experiment. The biggest challenge I discovered when you're trying to shoot with 2 cameras of any variety has to do with the audio, because you're getting a video track from this camera and you're getting a second video track from this camera, and other than the time it takes to copy all the video from 2 cameras to your phone or to your laptop, and all the time it takes to work with and edit 2 video tracks, that's kind of simple. You can just cut from this video to that video. You can put this video on top of that video. You can make this video smaller, bigger. You can mix and match the video and keep it in sequence relatively easy. That's not a huge deal. The problem you run into has to do with audio, at least for me, because what I'm doing right now is I'm using this Rode Wireless Go microphone to record audio. And I have the receiver mounted here on this GoPro, on GoPro number 1, as I'm currently calling it. So once I take the video from this GoPro and copy it into my editing program, the audio is attached to this video. And I'm also recording video with Armando here, GoPro number 2. But the thing is that all the video from this GoPro doesn't have that audio. It only has audio that's recorded through the GoPro's built-in microphone. And that audio, if I'm speaking like this, just sort of talking into it, it's fine. The newer GoPros, the GoPro Hero 8 and Hero 9, from the tests I've seen, the audio from the built-in mic, you could use it like this all the time. You don't even need an external mic. The audio quality has gotten better with the Hero 8 and the Hero 9. But with the Hero 7, it's a bit tinny, it's not that pleasing, and I prefer the sound from the Rode. But if you're driving the scooter, or it's windy, or there's a lot of ambient noise from things going on around you, then the audio from the GoPro itself really is not usable at all. So then I find myself in the position of copying this video into my editing program, but I have no audio to go with it. So then I have to take the audio from this GoPro and sync it up with this video. So basically I have to line them up. And if you're not prepared for that and you haven't thought about that in advance, it can be quite a challenge, as I discovered. So I'm trying to work out a technique now where it's easier to sync up the audio from this GoPro with the video from this GoPro. So what I figured out is that what I need to do for both video and audio is start recording with the two cameras at exactly the same time. So I should press the record button simultaneously, or as close to simultaneously as I can, and then that will make my life a lot easier later on when I try to sync things up, because the two video clips will be exactly the same, filming exactly the same thing from start to finish, and then I can line them up a little bit easier. They won't be perfectly aligned, of course, but they'll be close enough that I can get a rough start. And what I figured out is that I need to do that Hollywood clapper system. You know how when they film movies, they take that wooden clapper with the scene name and number written on it, and then they hold it in front of the lens and they lift the top and they clap it, and it makes a clapping sound. And the reason they do that is because it makes a big spike in the audio track, and then when they have two tracks with two different spikes, then they can just line up those peaks perfectly and get it lined up exactly right. I can't do that exactly with the system that I'm using on my smartphone, but if I do have a loud clap sound like that on both GoPros, that will give me an instant, point at which I can line up the two video tracks in order to get the audio track lined up. So that is my technique for today. I'm going to experiment with that. I'm going to try to press record on both GoPros simultaneously, and once I have both of them running, then I'm going to add even more to my goofy lifestyle, and I'm going to turn and look at both cameras and give a clap, and then have that on both cameras, and then I can line up the sound, and that will give me another way to line it up perfectly. So that is what is going on in terms of the audio. That can be a lot of fun. By the way, when I do line up the video from one and the other, I'm using some interesting techniques. The most common one, which there might be an easier way to do it, but this is the way I figured out, and it seems to work fine, is I'll take the two video tracks, add them to my editing program, so I have this one with the audio is always video track number 1, so it's the foundation track, and then I have the video from Armando sitting on top of it. And the video from Armando covers up this video completely. So I have both of them playing at the same time, with one covering up the other one. But then whenever I want to switch from one to the other, all I have to do is insert a cut point and then make one of them invisible. And in editing programs, they generally call that feature opaque. And if something is 100% opaque, it is visible. If it's 0% opaque, then it becomes invisible. So I work through the video tracks, one sitting on top of the other, and I decide which track I want to see at any particular point, and then I just take that video, make it 100% opaque, and make the other video 0% opaque. So I'm basically, when you're watching the video, I'm actually playing both video tracks at the same time, the video from GoPro 1 and the video from Armando, but then I make this one invisible. Then I make this one invisible, and then this one becomes invisible. Then I go back and forth between them that way. And professional video editors are probably out there in the world screaming that that's the dumbest thing they've ever heard, and you should do it this way. But I'm not really sure what that other way could be. This is the way that I figured out, and it's kind of fast, and it's kind of efficient, and it seems to work well. So that's the audio and the video technique for this 2 GoPro system that I've got going on. The final part of this trifecta is mounting, and that's the last thing I'll talk about here in terms of behind the scenes, because right now what I'm doing is I have 2 completely different mounting systems on the 2 different GoPros. So this one is my main mounting system for GoPro number one. This is a really weird setup that I'm positive no one on the planet uses other than me, but with all of my quirks, this works for me because it allows me to use this as a selfie stick. You know, I can just hold it in front of me and talk into the camera, and I can twist it and bend it in any direction I want. With my triple hinges here, I have a triple mounting system going on there with all these adapters in a row, and using that I can turn the GoPro at a 90-degree angle, or turn so I can attach the GoPro this way but still have the GoPro sitting level, because I can use these 3 mounting points any way I want to make it 90 degrees or turn it any particular angle that I want. So that's very handy for me. Plus, of course, I have the jaws here, meaning I can, you know, clamp it to my hand. You know, it's a very tight clamp, but I can clamp it to a fence post, to a pole, to a chair, to a table, to anything at all. And of course, as I've shown in previous videos, I have this tripod adapter now, which I can actually insert into the jaws, which essentially converts this into a tripod as well. So this is the one way I figured out where I can have not the best of every world, but I can have a little bit of every world. I've got a selfie stick, I've got a clamp, I've got a tripod, and it's completely maneuverable in 360 degrees. And maybe there's another way to do that with GoPro accessories, but I'm not aware of it. Putting these items together is the only way I can think of to have all of those features available in the same mounting system. So this is my main way of shooting with GoPro number one, and that's how I will have it during the day. With Armando, with GoPro number two, I'm using what they call the GoPro Max Grip and Tripod. That's what this is. Armando sent this to me along with his GoPro, and at first I wasn't really sure about this thing. I have a 3-way grip, and I have a hand grip. I have a bunch of grips, and I looked at this one and I thought, I don't know, I don't see it having a big advantage over what I already have, because the 3-way grip is bendable. You can bend it and curve it and put it in lots of different positions, and it has a built-in tripod, and it can pack down really small, and it's lighter and smaller than this. So I thought, I'm probably not going to end up using this. I think I'll just use my 3-way. But I gave it a try on my first day, and this has some big advantages over the 3-way. The main one, and the one that convinces me that this is the way to go, is the tripod base is much wider and more stable. The 3-way tripod base is essentially this thing. It's the same as what I use on my Jaws Flex clamp, and it's very small, and it just does not support very much. You can just see the difference, you know, in size. This is a tiny little thing, and this thing is much bigger, much more stable, and I have a lot more confidence in it. So right away when I used this as a tripod, I went, okay, I like that. That's much more stable. Using this thing, the tiniest puff of wind blows the camera over. The tiniest touch with an elbow, over it goes. I've dropped, my GoPro has fallen over several times using this when I'm not paying attention, but this, it won't fall over. And the other advantage, again, it's kind of interesting on a theoretical level. I've learned that thinking about things doesn't get you very far. Practical attempts really show you what's happening. And I thought the GoPro 3-way being bendable would be a big advantage over this. But as soon as I took this out into the field, because not only is it a tripod, it is a grip and a selfie stick. So all you have to do is twist it, and then it starts to extend. And it can extend, I think this is okay, there we go. It gets pretty long. So you twist it, pull it out, and then you twist to the base again, and it locks it into position. So now you have a selfie stick, and of course that makes it much taller when you use it as a tripod. And once I started using that, I found it to be so much more convenient than the three-way, because the biggest problem with the three-way is it is bendable, so it has 3 hinges, has pivot points, and it has the standard GoPro thumb screws, and you cannot get those tight enough to hold it in place. You've got to use the Hulk levels of power in order to get that tight enough so that it doesn't twist. And once you use your Hulk power to tighten it into position, how are you going to untighten it? It takes a lot of strength, and sometimes you can barely do it, and you end up with bruised and hurting fingers by the end of the day. So I am currently in love with the ease of this GoPro Max tripod and grip, or grip and tripod. It's got a very bizarre name on the GoPro website. I knew nothing about it, but now this is my go-to for Armando, and this is my go-to for GoPro number 1. So that's when I'm walking around. I can walk around holding this, filming myself and filming things that I'm close to, while I have this on its tripod in the background filming the whole scene. Whether that's useful or not, whether it adds a lot to the video watching experience, I don't really know at this point, but it's something that I tried on my first experiment. So that's walking around, and then there is the mounting of the GoPro on the scooter, and that's where things get even more complicated, but perhaps a bit interesting. And that's why I like to use these buckle mounts. GoPro has 2 systems. They have these screws, these thumb screws, but then they also have a quick release buckle mount system. And I have both of these set up on buckle mounts just so I can easily unclip them and clip them into different mounting positions. So stick with me here. This is my walking around GoPro number 1. Now when I want to get back on the scooter, I have to disconnect it from this, and that involves, it's a little bit tricky right now, but I've got to get this out of the way. And then what you do is release this locking system. There's a rubber tab that locks it into place. You pinch the sides and you pull it off. And once you get the rhythm of that, it's really easy and fast. So now I have GoPro number 1 on a small mount with a buckle mount, and this slides into a buckle mount on the front of my scooter. So this becomes the front camera on my scooter, clipped into a sticky mount using the buckle. And now that I have no GoPro on here anymore, this is the gooseneck. It's also attached with a buckle mount, so you pop that off. So now all you have is the jaws, and these jaws I can clamp anywhere on the scooter. I can clamp on the luggage rack, on the foot pegs, on the rear light, the license plate light, on the rear of the scooter. I can basically clamp it anywhere I want where there is a suitable edge that this thing can grip. So this is what I use for Armando on the scooter. So then I have to take Armando off the GoPro Max, and that's relatively simple. Same thing, you pop off the rubber lock, pinch the sides, it slides off, and then you take your jaws, orient the GoPro in the right angle, and now I have Armando on the jaws flex clamp, and I have GoPro number 1 on a buckle mount. So now this is my scooter setup. This goes on the front of the scooter, and this goes everywhere else on the scooter as I move it around for different angles. And this is not an ideal system, but it is the only system I can come up with right now with the equipment that I have. Someday I will go shopping, and there are dedicated motorcycle mounting rigs that you can buy from third-party companies that would probably work a lot better than this, but at the moment this is what I have. So yeah, that's it for mounting. On the scooter, Armando is on the grip, and GoPro number 1 is on the buckle mount. And then when I'm walking around, I use, the whole giant rig that I showed you for GoPro number 1, and then the GoPro Max grip and tripod for Armando. So that is what is going on today, with one other twist, because my biggest problem by far to date is that the sticky mount that I put on my scooter, I had to mount it on an angled surface. It's angled in this direction and it's angled in this direction, which is a very complex thing to deal with when you're trying to get the GoPro level using this whole rig that I have here. It's very hard to compensate for those two angles to get it level, and that was driving me crazy. But yesterday I figured out that the front surface of the speedometer display on the scooter is almost perfectly flat, and it's perfectly centered on the scooter. So I did not want to put another sticky mount on this scooter, because eventually I'm going to have to remove these sticky mounts, and I'm hoping that will be easy to do. We'll see. But what I did, took a chance, and I added a second sticky mount to the scooter, and this one is directly in front of me on the speedometer display. And the advantage to that is, A, it is perfectly flat, so I don't have to worry about the GoPro leveling at all. I just have to make sure that this is straight up and down, and it's always straight up and down on the scooter now. And not only is it perfectly level, it is dead center on the scooter. So I don't even have to worry about the angle left or right. All I have to do now is click the GoPro into place, done. And it's perfectly level, pointing right directly ahead of me. So yeah. I'm not sure why I didn't think of that the first time. I think the reason is dummy. Yeah, I never thought of it, but I think I kind of thought of it at the back of my mind, but that clear plastic speedometer display, I didn't think it would be a good thing to put a sticky mount on there. I was worried about the residue the sticky mount would leave behind, but I decided to take a chance, because the other system, the way the old sticky mount is located, it's causing so much trouble. And to be honest, it causes so much trouble while I'm driving that it increases the risk of the GoPro contributing to an accident on the scooter. So in fact, by putting the GoPro on the speedometer display in a more convenient location that I don't have to fiddle with, it might end up saving a lot more difficulty and harm to the scooter in the future if my old system contributed to me having an accident. So I think this was the better choice, and that's what I'll be doing today. That's it for technical stuff behind the scenes for now, and I'm hoping that as I drive the scooter around, I'm not going to talk about what's going on. This is enough technical behind the scenes blither blather for now. I'm hoping to just take the GoPros out and just use them all day today and just pretend they don't exist from this point on. All the fiddling I'm going to be doing in the background, I will just leave that in the background for today, and the rest of the video will just be me on the scooter, just enjoying another day in Thailand, going to this temple, and all the other thoughts on my mind, I will leave that for when I'm on the scooter. So let's get on the scooter and yeah, get out of here. The first thing, I guess, is the temple that we're going to today. And I won't try to say the name of the temple. I'll put it up on the screen. I don't know much about it. I just looked at a couple of pictures just to get an idea of what the place was like. And I don't think it's a large temple. It's not a big temple complex. I think the main attraction is that it has that boulder, a gold painted boulder up on the top of a hill, kind of like more like a shrine than a temple. And from the main temple site, you can then find a trail to climb up to this boulder that's sitting there on an edge, looking like it could fall over at any time. I believe it is a Mon-style temple. That's what I read, or a Mon-style shrine. And another attraction to this temple, oh, I think I already missed a turnoff, is that from there you get a view of the Mae River, or at least you end up looking towards the Mae River and towards Myanmar. So perhaps it is a place for people from Myanmar that are living in Thailand to go there and look across the river to their home country, to Myanmar. In terms of the route I'm going to follow, some of it will be similar to other trips I've taken recently, because I'm heading out. This temple is near the gravel quarry temple that I visited the other day. And the route I'm going to follow here at the very beginning is the same route that I followed when I went to Mae Sot hot spring and cave. This is not a direct route to the shrine. In fact, it's kind of a long roundabout way of getting there. But I wanted to go this way just to see a bit more of the countryside. As you can tell, the first part of the trip is a little bit complicated. I have to get across these divided highway systems with a bunch of one-way sections. And despite a little bit of confusion, I think I know what I'm doing. And maybe this is a good time to tell the story of my haircut. Or maybe I back up a little bit, because the big news from Mae Sot is, and from Thailand in general, is that in response to a kind of resurgence in the number of COVID-19 infections, the government, the national government and the provincial governments have put in place a whole bunch of new restrictions. And I don't really understand them, to be honest. There have been so many sets of rules and travel restrictions and closures that I'm just really confused at this point. I have no idea what is going on. And there is also a big difference between what the national government puts in place and what the provincial governments put in place. So everything I read about tends to be from the national government and from the Bangkok area. But what affects me more directly is whatever the government of Tak province puts in place. And I can't find any information about that in English. So I don't really know the situation. But the basic idea is that the government has divided the country's provinces into different zones. And 32 of the provinces are in what they call a red zone. And Tak, where Mae Sot is located, is now a red zone province. And the more severe restrictions and policies apply to the red zone. Oh, there's a big looking dog up ahead. I thought it was a cow at first. Or maybe just the shadows make him look big. Oh, it's a pretty big dog. Watching me cautiously as I drive by. And most of the restrictions, I think, are the standard ones that we've all gotten used to. Bars are closed. Coffee shops and restaurants can offer only takeout service. Massage parlors, sporting events, large gatherings, all that kind of stuff is banned or limited in terms of how long or how much they can open. A few small differences, and that connects to my story in that in the old restrictions, barbershops were not allowed to open at all. But under the red zone rules, a barbershop is allowed to open apparently, but with restrictions. So they can open, but they can only serve one customer at a time. Maybe that depends on the size of the establishment. And any customer going there, you can't sit inside and wait for your turn. You have to wait outside. Plus, when you go in for your haircut or hairstyle, there's a time limit to how long you can stay in there. I think the time limit is 2 hours. So that's kind of pointless, because if I ever need a 2-hour haircut, you know that something really drastic is taking place. A normal haircut for me should take like 10 minutes. So all of that doesn't really affect me very much. Bars being closed, you know, I don't go out to bars very much, if ever. And with restaurants and coffee shops, yeah, of course, that does affect me. But it's not like I can't live for a few weeks without going to a coffee shop. So the more serious policies have to do with travel, because I have been making plans to travel outside of Mae Sot. And according to the red zone rules, I've heard just rumors that there are now travel restrictions between provinces in place. So in fact, in some provinces I read, and this may or may not be true, you actually have to get permission to leave the province, and you have to provide a reason that fits their policy. It has to be some kind of a necessary trip or an emergency. And my kind of tourism, of course, would not fit into that category. So I probably could not get permission to leave Tak province, because I'd just be going out for tourism. Anyway, that may or may not apply to Tak province. And I even saw an article where the Prime Minister, immediately after putting a lot of these rules in place, such as the provincial travel restrictions, right afterwards, he rescinded them and took them back. So at this point, I have no idea what the rules are, and I'll just have to figure that out as I go. But it was good news that barbershops were allowed to be open, because I really did feel like I needed a haircut. This is the haircut we're talking about, by the way, just to remind you that my hair is indeed cut and shorter. It's much more comfortable because, as I said in my last video, when I'm wearing the helmet and I have the visor down, the wind whips up underneath the visor and it blows my hair all over the place, and it was so long in my bangs that it would end up in my eyes. So I wanted to get all that cut back and out of the way. And yeah, this is what I ended up with when I walked out. Yeah, I don't mind it. What do I care about my hair? Don't care that much about what I look like, ever, or especially these days. So, back on the road. The haircut is a little bit of a complicated story, I guess, because I first heard about all the red zone restrictions and I thought, well, I missed my chance, I won't be able to get a haircut. But then I found out that no, the barbershops were open and they just had all these new restrictions in place. So I thought, okay, I can go get one. And my original idea, of course, was to take my GoPro with me and film the whole haircut experience. I was going to go to this area near the big market, kind of a Burmese neighborhood. It was a place I saw what had 4 or 5 very small barbershops, and I was going to go there and make kind of an experience out of it. But with all the restrictions in place, I thought, let's just go do it normally, because I didn't want to deal with all these concerns about COVID-19 and me being a foreigner. And then on top of that, bring a GoPro into the barbershop and set it up and film everything. People here are very concerned about getting caught breaking the rules. So no business wants to be on camera right now, just in case. So I left the GoPro at home at the guest house, and I just went to a small neighborhood barbershop right around the corner from my guest house. And it worked out okay. I always have this experience in Thailand, though. Maybe it's just me being a goofy foreigner, but when I show up in a barbershop or something, in other countries, I'm so used to being something of a celebrity. Oh, my Rode Wireless Go microphone just fell off. Let's put that back into place. That is a problem I have to work on. I'm so used to being a celebrity that when I walk into a barbershop, say in Bangladesh or Myanmar, I'm greeted with some excitement, a big smile, and hey, come on in, and I don't know, it's just something new in their day. But here in Thailand, I'm nothing new. There are foreigners like me all over Thailand, and everybody's used to us. So when I walk into one of these barbershops, like I did on this trip, and the guy, he barely even acknowledged I existed. He was sitting in one of the barber chairs, and he kind of looked at me, and I thought I detected a little bit of a sigh, like, foreigner, I guess I'll cut his hair, that kind of a reaction. Certainly no smile, no greeting, no sense of welcome. But I'm kind of used to that in Thailand now. And it's just because, I'm normal to them. There's nothing special about me walking into their shop. They've seen me, or versions of me, a million times. So I had that little bit of awkwardness when I first walked in. I didn't really feel welcome. And with a certain pandemic paranoia, I wondered if that was because I was a foreigner and they're worried about the virus because I'm a foreigner, that sort of thing. And I'm sure that had nothing to do with it. But anyway, I did go in, I sat down, and on my other barbershop trips, they requested that I take my mask off because it gets in the way when they're cutting your hair. So I would remove the mask while I'm sitting in the barber chair. So I did that this time too. I walked in, and just as I was sitting down in the chair, I went to take my mask off, thinking that's what they wanted. But then the barber, he reacted very quickly, like, no, I don't think he said no in English, but he said something negative, and he waved his hands at me to indicate I should keep the mask on. So I quickly put it back on, and then he set about cutting my hair. And of course, instructions for cutting my hair were simple as always. He wanted some guidance as to what to do with my hair, and I just said one word. Oh, actually, he said the word, basically. He said short, and I said, yes, short. That's all I really wanted. Just cut it shorter. Other times when I went in and they said short, I actually said not really short. And that's why I ended up with such weird haircuts the last couple of times. They left my hair really long on top when I didn't really want that. But this time he said short, and I agreed short. And that was the only communication that took place between us. And he said about cutting my hair. And yeah, did a fine job. The one wrinkle, and this is perhaps a little bit embarrassing, but I'll tell the story anyway, is that on the back of my neck, on this side, I have kind of a mole back there. And in the past, barbers who were not careful cut that mole 2 times in my lifetime. And I remember both times very clearly because it was so painful and because the bleeding was so bad. It happened once in Canada, once in Korea, and then now the 3rd time here in Thailand. And it's interesting to notice the difference because when I was in Korea and in Canada, when the barber cut that mole by accident using a razor, because they cut the back of your neck with a razor when they're done with the haircut, they reacted quite strongly. A lot of, oh, I'm so sorry, oh, I hope that didn't hurt. And then there was a lot of activity to do with disinfectants, soaking up the blood, Band-Aids, apologies, and then we would move on. Here in Thailand, the guy was just using a clipper. He wasn't using a razor blade, but he was using the clipper back there, and then I suddenly felt it. It's like, oh man, I knew exactly what had happened. He had cut into that mole, and then he just didn't say a word. He didn't react in any way at all. And not to embarrass him, I also didn't react. I didn't flinch when he cut into it. I felt the pain, but I didn't move. I didn't want to make him feel bad. So I just sat there stoically and let him finish his haircut. And when he was done, I told him how amazing I thought I looked, you know, that he did a great job. I paid him and I went out. And then I go out onto the street, and when I get out of sight of the barber shop, I reach behind me onto my neck, and my hand came away like drenched in blood. It was bleeding so badly back there. And this Thai barber had done nothing about the blood flow. And as I said, he didn't react in any way. So that was I thought that was pretty funny. So when I got back to the guest house, I did some inspecting and got the blood flow to stop, and I put a Band-Aid on it. And just as I was driving the scooter here towards the main highway, the wind pulled off the Band-Aid and it was flapping around in the wind. So I've since removed it, but yeah, it's healed already. It's a very sensitive piece of my anatomy, I'll tell you that. It cuts very easily, but then it heals up just as easily. So that was my Thailand haircut experience.